everybody, welcome to another episode of 4x4 Camping and Adventures. Today we're going to be talking about beach driving, so tips and tricks to what to do on the beach and what not to do on the beach. So as you're pretty aware that we live in WA, and generally most of our forward driving comes from the beach, and there's still a lot of people out there that don't really know how to drive on the beach properly, or maybe they're not experienced in forward driving. So this is a bit of a video to explain some of the things to do on the beach, some things don't do on the beach ever, and talking about dune driving and general recovery ideas and that kind of thing as well, about if you do get stuck on the beach and what you should use to get out of it. But it's going to be a bit of a short video, but it should have a lot of information in there about people that have never driven on the beach before. So let's get into it. Alright, so here we got a thing called a razorback. So the worst case scenario here is you're going to cruise up here at 30-40 k's an hour, and at the end of the dune you're not going to see this lovely jump that you've just put yourself into. Essentially you're going to end up down there with a twisted chassis, smashed suspension, smashed axles, all that lovely stuff that we don't want when we're forward driving. So this is just an example. I'll give you another example in the video of this going down one, or seeing one in the video in the car. But it's something to look out for, obviously, when you're forward driving on the beach, because the dunes can change every day, and as you can see now, there's so much sand being moved around that this could be completely different tomorrow. So you can't just go into the beach and expect it to be the same. It's got to change every day. Alright, so another thing about being on a beach is treat it with respect. Now, I've got my old mate Bushman, Reese. He's not wearing any shoes, which is fine. You can do that on the beach. I'm wearing thongs, but I walk around with no shoes as well. But look at this picture, and you might not be able to see it in the video, and I mean, Reese didn't even see it when he was walking around. But you've got a lovely chunk of shard of glass here, which can not only cut your foot up, but it can pierce your car or your tyres. So do the right thing, take your rubbish with you, because no one wants to see glass on the beach, because you've got to remember, kids use the beach as well. It's not just us forward drivers and people fishing and that kind of thing. Kids come out here and play on the dunes and sandboard and all that kind of stuff. So do the right thing, take your rubbish with you. I'm assuming someone's obviously had a camp here, because it looks like a bit of a camping spot, but take your bag of rubbish, take it out with you, put it in the bin, and do the right thing, because this stuff will ruin your day. So do the right thing and put your rubbish away. Alright, so what we have here is a big dune. So this is the fun side of the beach driving, or dune driving. So it's not all razorbacks and doom and gloom and all the rest of it. But what you want to do here is hit it dead on. Depending on your car, I normally hit it in second low or something like that. So, but depending on the vehicle, depending how much power you've got. But you want to hit it dead on, wheels straight, don't turn the wheels, anything like that. And same with going down. So normally going down, being first low, again depending on your vehicle, but you want to be in the lowest gear possible, so you can just cruise down and let the car pretty much idle down the dune. So what I'll do is demonstrate it going up the dune and then coming back down, and you can see it both in action. And then obviously this is sort of like a best practice for dune driving, that kind of thing. So here's another angle. This is inside the cabin going down the sand dune. This is actually quite a large sand dune in Lucky Bay. So don't be afraid of them. Just keep with the rules, keep the wheels straight and first low, and you won't have a drama. So tip number one is when you're driving on the beach or the sand, it's completely different to driving on gravel, mud, anything like that. So with sand is you want to get your tyres obviously down to a good pressure. So depending on your vehicle, but this the safe go-to pressure is about 18 psi for like a broad spectrum of vehicles. Now if you've got a lighter vehicle, you may have to go a little bit lower, because obviously you want the tyres to bag out. If you've got a heavier vehicle, you might want to go higher pressure. So if you've got like a 79 series, which weighs a lot, you might have a higher pressure compared to a let's say like my Trident. which I go down to like 15 psi. Now, with that as well, don't be if you do get to the situation where you're bogged and you're not going anywhere, the first go-to thing is let your tyres down a little bit more. So if you're on 20 psi, try to go down to 15. If 15 won't help you, try to go down to 10. Anything below 10 is going to be a real grey area, because then you can start rolling tyres off the bead and all that kind of thing. So you know, proceed with caution if you go below 10, but some situations may need it. But if you're at that PSI, then you're probably thinking of max tracks, digging out, recovery snap, snatch strap, whatever the situation is to get you out of that situation. But that's a sort of a general rule about tyre pressures. So don't be afraid to go below 15 psi, because you may need it in that situation. Another tip is, remember, the beach isn't just for us four drivers. People go down here to go swimming, people go down here to go snorkeling, or they go fishing. There's kids. I mean, at the moment we're in the dune system, and there's some kids over there just playing around in the dunes. So it's something that can be a really fun day turn into a very serious situation. If you're flogging down the beach at 70 k's an hour and you think you own the place, and then a kid jumps out in front of you because they've just come off a dune system or something like that, it can end very, very badly, because you haven't got the brakes, you haven't got the stopping ability, anything like that on the beach that you would have on the road. So you treat it with caution. You'd probably say, you know, you do 30-40 k's as a maximum on the beach. If you know it's flat and you know there's no kids around and you're out in the middle of nowhere, then you can probably safely get away with it. But anywhere else, you just want to cruise around, you know, 20 k's an hour, that's fine, because you should be able to stop in time and get out of the situation if it does become tricky. And talking about speed, because you've let your tyre pressures down, or you should have, you want to keep your momentum. So one thing about beach driving is momentum. Because your tyres are essentially floating on the sand, if you keep that momentum up, they're going to float across the sand. As soon as you lose momentum, your tyres are going to dig into the sand and they're going to become big shovels. So once that happens, is generally let off a little bit of throttle so your tyres aren't spinning as heavy. If that doesn't work, you know, the old saying goes, put your foot in it and see if you can get yourself out. But that can go one or two ways as well. You're going to either go down or you're going to go forward. So if you go down, stop, you know, stop instantly, because you're just going to bog yourself down. The quicker you stop, the less digging you have to do. So that's a bit of a general rule I'll listen to, is if I do start spinning down, then you know, stop as quick as possible. If you do have lockers, little tip is if you sort of, let's say, semi-bogged, you're sort of moving but you're not, but you know, you've got that little bit of momentum, flick front and rear lockers on, and essentially what you can do is crawl yourself out. So if you've got like a Land Cruiser like Reese does, he just puts it in first low, puts the lockers on, and he essentially just crawls out on idle. And we've done that a couple of times and it's worked. I've seen some other videos on the internet. Ronnie Ronnie Dale, he's done it, so where he's gone over a dune and essentially he's crawled over the actual dune by putting the front and rear lockers in, and it works a treat. So if you've got traction control as well, you can use that in a similar sense, whereas the traction control should stop the wheel that's letting all the power go. You should stop that wheel and send it to the other wheels. Sort of works, doesn't really work, but you can give it a go anyway. In that situation, you're sort of willing to try anything. So so you obviously think about that. Obviously, when you're bogged, if you have lockers, if you're you know, lucky enough to have lockers. So another thing to do is make sure you bring lots of water, because if it's we actually got a lovely day today. It's actually overcast in Gelton for the first time in about 1,000 years. So it's actually quite cool, which is nice. But on you know, if you come down to the beach, it's generally pretty hot, because obviously that's why you're down at the beach. So you want to make sure obviously you got a lot of water, cater for more than yourself. You should always carry at least 2 litres of water when you're going you know, somewhere remote, so, or not remote, but somewhere where you obviously haven't got access to water, so you can cater for everybody. But just make sure you bring water, because dehydration can become a massive thing, and you've got a big sea out there, but obviously you can't drink any of the water in it. So it's so yeah, you get dehydrated very quickly, and obviously the heat comes off the sand as well, so it yeah, become a pretty bad situation pretty quickly. Another thing about bad situations is if you do have a problem out in the middle of nowhere, i.e. If you have a problem with your vehicle, just remember, if you're remote, I mean, we're not remote, we're only 20 k's from Gelton, but if you're somewhere further, like let's say like might be Lucky Bay, which is an hour and a half from Gelton, if you have, let's say, a snake bite or you get bitten by a spider, this is all sort of things that you need to sort of cater for, because you might not have a hospital 5 minutes down the road, so you need to have obviously your basic first aid equipment and that kind of thing on the vehicle. And just, you know, keep that in the back of your mind. You are pretty far away from everywhere. That's obviously why we go camping, to get away from it all. But you just got to make sure the safety side of things is there as well, because you don't want to be caught in a bad situation where you could have been prepared and you don't have the right equipment on you. Same to do with vehicles. If you let's say you go down to 10 psi and you throw a bead off your car, how hard is it going to be to replace that tyre on the beach? And I'm going to say, I've done it before, it's pretty hard. Like, replacing a tyre on the sand is one of the hardest things you'll do. So just think about that. If you go down, if you get bogged and you do go down to that pressure, obviously have a compressor. You know, that's like standard equipment for the beach driving. Put the air back into it, put back 15 psi, and obviously work with that. Another thing you shouldn't do obviously is hit the brakes extremely hard, because what is going to happen is the front of the vehicle is going to dig into the sand, and when that happens, it can actually make you bogged. So in a situation like that, if you do hit the skids really hard, try to reverse out of it, but what you should do is just put your foot on the clutch and let the car roll to a stop. So in an emergency situation, yeah, sure, hit the brakes, but if in any other situation, just put your foot on the clutch, take it out of the gear, and just cruise along, obviously, in a slow speed, because it's just going to make it a lot easier for your beach driving. It's got a lot less wear and tear on the vehicle as well, because, you know, digging yourself out of bogs all the time is, you know, it's just going to wear down your vehicle. So, all right, so non-negotiable standard equipment that you should have in your vehicle at all times when you're at the beach is a compressor, a tyre deflator. If you don't obviously have one of those, you can use a stick, but they're 20 bucks. You can pick them up pretty cheap these days. You should always have a shovel with you. Everyone's got a shovel. Take one from home. You try to get a long handle shovel. It's easier to dig with, especially in a bog situation. You don't want those little piss ant shovels, which are like this big, because they're just not going to help you. You're just going to be sitting there digging all day. Get a long hand shovel so you can just, you know, dig from the side of the vehicle. Nothing worse than trying to use a little shovel like this to try to get out like a 3-ton truck. It's just, it's a long day. So also you want a snatch strap and obviously some rated shackles. So depending on you don't know what vehicle you might encounter, so you just make sure you have the shackles on you. And obviously remember the golden rule: if you pull something out of the bog, it costs a carton. Well, that's up obviously up north rules, but if you pull something out of the bog, pay them a carton, because it's just, you could have a worse day by sitting in the bog for the rest of your day, especially if you haven't got the equipment and someone comes along with the equipment. You should give them a bit of a payment. So the non-spoke about rule: pay them a carton to get you out of the bog. But that's pretty much the standard stuff you need. Compressor to put your tyres back up, obviously, so when you get back on the road you're not chewing your tyres out. Shovel to get yourself out of the bog, and obviously a snatch strap is just a non-negotiable. You should just have that in your car. Don't use a chain. They'll snap, they'll break. You're just going to have nothing but troubles. Don't use a rope. They're not rated. You're trying to pull let's say a 2-ton truck, or my car, which is 2-ton, plus the force of it being bogged, plus the force of your car pulling it, it equals out to 8 and 9 tons, even 10 tons, depending on the vehicle. It could be even 12 tons of force on that strap. A rope ain't going to cut it. The rope's just going to snap, and if you've got a knot in there, it's going to snap at the knot, it's going to come back in your car, can smash windows. It's just not what you do. Get a snatch strap. You can buy them for like 30-40 bucks. Like, they're not an expensive piece of equipment, but if you've got a four-wheel drive, it's your duty as an owner to have that equipment in your car. Because if you don't and you get stuck, some people might even refuse to get you out because you're using their equipment. And if you say you haven't got the right equipment, then they're going to look at you like, well, what are you doing? Why even on the beach? You haven't got the basics you need to obviously go forward driving. But that doesn't happen often. But, you know, just be wary of it. But obviously, always make sure I've at least got the right equipment. So that's some tips and tricks about what you should do on the beach and what you shouldn't do on the beach, but just follow the basic rules. Generally where you're going to go, there might be a sign. I'll put a sign up the photo where we went today. It tells you some basic outline rules of what you should and shouldn't do. But just remember the basics. There's kids around, there might be people fishing, you might go around a corner, so obviously there might be another person coming around the other side, so just be wary of your situation. Don't flog around like an idiot at 100 k's an hour. Remember razorbacks, so anything like behind me, if you're going to hit that at top speed trying to get over dune, and then there's obviously a drop off like you saw earlier in the video where we had Reese drop down the hill. That's just going to cause nothing but dramas for your vehicle, so it's going to be hard to get out as well. So you've got to remember, you've got to tow your vehicle out of these situations as well. So don't get your vehicle in the situation in the first place. But that's just some general rules about what you should do on the beach, what you shouldn't do on the beach. But just make sure you have fun out here. Obviously, it's all about having fun, but doesn't mean you can just go be a larrikin and obviously go nuts. But that's another episode of 4x4 Camping and Adventures, and I believe obviously we're almost at episode 30 now, I think, from January, and we've been going really well. The support's been fantastic, and now we're over 400 subscribers, which is even better. So big thanks to everyone out there, obviously, and really trying to crack that 500 before we get into sort of halfway through the year or sort of August area. So I really want to crack that, but obviously it's going to get more momentum as it gets bigger. But as always, hit me a like, hit me a comment, and hit that subscribe button. Share it around, obviously, if you think these are great tips and tricks. So, that'd be fantastic. But as always, have a great day, and I'll see you out in the tracks and trails. See ya.